Have you ever asked yourself, the woman beside you, who is she truly in love with? Is it really you, this flesh and blood man with your past, your wounds, your strengths, and your flaws? Or is it some idealized image she once painted in her youthful dreams, a perfect man she has long sought and unconsciously projected onto you like a mask? Most men dare not ask themselves that question, because the answer is too cruel. Carl Jung, one of the greatest masters of analytical psychology, devoted his life to studying the dark abyss of the human mind. He did not write pleasant words for motivational speakers to preach. He did not paint a rosy picture of romantic love. Jung coldly pointed out many women do not truly love the man himself. They love their own idea of a man. This is not a judgment, it is a very natural psychological mechanism of the female psyche. Deep within every woman lies an unconscious archetype that Jung called the animus, an idealized image of masculinity. And so when she meets you, those eyes are not really seeing you. They are scanning, comparing, and measuring you against that archetype. Do you fit the mold? Do you play the role well? Do you match the inner story she's been writing in her mind? When you fit the role, her reaction is to fall in love rapidly. She believes she has finally found that man. But when you start revealing aspects that do not match the script, that affection quickly fades. You think you did something wrong? No, you simply stopped being the character she had hoped for. Jung warned projection, the unconscious projection of inner ideals, is one of the most dangerous traps in male-female relationships. The woman does not intentionally deceive you. She herself is unaware that she is in love with a figure in her mind. But that does not make the trap any less harmful. Just look at reality. How many relationships begin in sweetness and passion only to collapse into inexplicable disappointment? How many men were once adored as special, different, only to one day be labeled cold, uncaring, no longer attractive? Do you think these men changed? No. They simply stopped fitting the role that was projected onto them from the beginning. Here Jung aligns deeply with Nietzsche, who once said, "At their deepest, people do not seek love. They seek to impose their will upon another." Even in love, the instinct to control, to mold, to fix the other into an inner ideal remains strong. And most women, having been raised on romantic stories and fairy tale expectations from an early age, are even more prone to this trap. They love their own story, not your real self. What does this mean for you, a man who wishes to be strong and self-possessed? It means if you do not recognize this trap, you will forever be swept into roles you never wanted. You will live not as a man of will, but as a puppet forced to please a dream that is not your own. And that is only the beginning. The trap runs even deeper, when you yourself carry inner voids that you have yet to confront. Most modern men do not live as sovereign beings. They live as puppets pulled by countless strings they themselves do not even recognize. And the strongest, most enduring string is the desire for acceptance. Think back to when you were just a boy. What were you taught? Be good, be obedient, make others happy. Growing up, entering society, know how to behave, know how to please others. In relationships, know how to compromise, know how to keep her happy. At what point did you learn that your value lies in the eyes of others, that you are worthy only when you are liked, that you are man enough only when chosen by a woman? Carl Jung once wrote, "A man who refuses to confront his own shadow will forever have his soul shaped by others." To put it bluntly, if you have never dared to face your fears, your insecurities, the weak parts within yourself, you will unconsciously seek to fill those voids with external validation. You will cling to a woman's gaze as though it were a lifeline. You will do anything to avoid rejection. You will willingly sacrifice your true identity just to maintain the role of the ideal man in her eyes. Look around you, how many men live like this, in the workplace, always afraid of offending colleagues, fearful of their boss's judgment, maintaining a properly polite facade until they lose all sense of authenticity. In relationships, the nice guy, always understanding, accommodating, submissive, only to be met with boredom and contempt. You think women want a man who is understanding and accommodating? No. As Jung clearly pointed out, the deepest instincts of women are not drawn to men who are predictable, easy to please, or easily controlled. What draws them in is a man with his own depth, his own principles, who cannot be easily molded. A man who is unafraid of losing her because he does not need her to feel whole. But most men raised in a society that increasingly weakens masculine do not understand this. They fall into a cruel cycle. The more they try to please, the less value they have. The more they fear abandonment, the more likely they are to be abandoned. The more they sacrifice themselves, the more they are disrespected. Schopenhauer once described love as a tragic illusion. We think we are in love with someone, but in truth we are merely trying to fill an emptiness within our own soul. And when that emptiness is too great, we cling, depend, and beg for validation. The saddest part is this: many men, well-educated, socially successful when it comes to love, behave like desperate souls seeking salvation, because within them lies a part that has never been healed, a shadow they have never dared to face. And the price they pay, they lose themselves. They no longer know where their true self ends and where the mask begins, the mask they wear to gain acceptance. They live as actors, one role after another, until one day they no longer recognize the man in the mirror. The question is there a way out? Yes. But it is not easy, and very few dare to take that path. There is a truth that most men will never want to hear. No one, no woman, no self-help method can rescue you from that vicious cycle. Only you can. And the path to escape is a journey that Carl Jung called individuation. So what is individuation? It is the process by which a person dares to go to the deepest core of themselves, daring to face the darkest, weakest, most chaotic parts of their soul, what Jung called the shadow. And from there, gradually integrating, accepting, and transforming it to become a whole being. No longer driven by inner lack, no longer forced to play roles, no longer needing to be chosen. Sound easy? It's not. This is one of the most brutal paths a man can walk. Because to truly begin individuation, you must dare to confront absolute loneliness. Dare to abandon the masks you've worn your entire life to survive. Dare to acknowledge the weakest, most fearful, ugliest parts of your inner self instead of blaming society or women. Jung once said, "Individuation requires that you die before you die." What does that mean? It means you must be willing to kill the false self, the persona you've built over the years just to be accepted. You must let it collapse. You must allow yourself to fall into a state where there is nothing left to cling to. And from those ashes, a new self, truer, stronger, freer, can be born. This is why most men never complete this path. They are afraid. Afraid of loneliness, of emptiness, when no longer admired, no longer desired, no longer having anyone to soothe their fragile ego. They choose the easier way to continue playing roles, to continue living as a nice guy, a perfect boyfriend, a model husband, only to be crushed by the very roles they cling to. But a rare few men, a small minority, dare to go further. They accept that psychological death. They allow all their masks to fall. They sit alone in the depths of loneliness. They let all illusions about themselves, about love, about life, fall away. And from that place, a new will is born. A will that does not need to be loved, does not need to be accepted, does not need to please anyone. Machiavelli once said, "The man who truly holds power is the one who no longer fears losing it." And in love, the same holds true. The man with the greatest allure is the one who no longer fears losing a woman. not because he is cool, talented, or wealthy, but because he no longer needs anyone to validate his worth. Carl Jung understood this more deeply than anyone. He knew only when a man confronts and integrates his shadow can he become a sovereign, being a whole man. And once you reach that state, the way you see women, relationships, and yourself will be changed forever. But that is only halfway through the journey. Because once you begin to awaken, once you stop playing roles, society will not easily accept you. When a man begins to step out of the cycle of seeking acceptance, when he no longer plays roles, no longer pleases, no longer craves the approving gaze of others, he will come to a stark realization: the world does not know how to deal with him. A nice guy, a man eager to bend to a woman's desires, is always welcomed. A responsible, gentle, lovable man is always encouraged. But an awakened man, one who has gone through individuation, who no longer needs anyone's acceptance, is a presence that makes society uneasy. Pay attention. When you start living true to yourself, when you no longer try to please anyone, those who were once close to you will begin to feel uncomfortable. They can no longer read you. They can no longer adjust you. They no longer know what role to play when they are with you, especially women, if they have not yet gone through their own journey. A woman who has not yet confronted her animus, still loving through projection, when faced with a man who no longer acts, she will feel empty, confused, sometimes afraid. One of humanity's deepest instincts is the fear of what cannot be controlled, and a man who no longer seeks to control, who no longer needs to be loved, is a presence that makes that instinct shrink back. This also happens in the workplace. When you no longer play the game of pleasing the boss, no longer engage in hidden alliances, no longer flatter anyone, you will be labeled as cold, distant, difficult. Machiavelli once warned, "The most powerful man is not he who holds power, but he who no longer fears losing it." And that power, once you've gone through individuation, no longer lies in status, money, or praise. It lies in this truth: you are no longer owned by any external need for acceptance. But what is the price to pay? Loneliness. Not the loneliness of lacking friends or lacking a lover, but the profound loneliness of seeing the game that most people are still so eager to play and no longer wanting any part of it. You enter a room and witness meaningless conversations, social performances, hollow relationships, and you know in a cold, clear way that you no longer belong there. That is why Jung once said, "The man who has walked through individuation is no longer welcomed by society. He is feared, misunderstood, labeled." Because he becomes a mirror reflecting the falsehood others do not want to see. His very presence forces them to confront their own shadows, something most people cannot bear. So if you choose this path, understand this: loneliness will be your most faithful companion. But it is within that loneliness that true strength is forged. Because only when standing alone without leaning on any illusion can a man truly know who he is. There is a strange paradox in human psychology. The more you try to please, the less respect you receive. The less you need to please anyone, the more respect you command. When a man has gone through individuation, when he no longer needs validation from women, from society, from anyone, he exudes a very different kind of soft power. Not the loud, boastful alpha male type. Not the bad boy who acts tough on the surface but secretly craves admiration. But a quiet, inexplicable presence that others simply cannot dismiss. Carl Jung once said, "The freest man is the one who is no longer possessed by the gaze of others." And at that point, you begin to access a deeper layer of power, the kind Machiavelli called power that cannot be bought. Imagine this. You walk into a room. You don't need to say much. You don't need to flaunt success. You don't need to seek attention. Simply the steadiness in your gaze, your posture, the way you stand, the way you breathe, causes others to take notice. Women are especially sensitive to this. They are not drawn to your words. They are drawn to the sense that you do not need them in order to feel like a man. This is an attraction that comes from inner wholeness, not from pickup techniques, chat tricks, or any gimmick. Conversely, men who try to behave correctly, try to impress, try to score points, will always emit the scent of lack. The more you try to be loved, the less love you receive. The more you crave attention, the more you are disregarded. That is why so many red pill gurus out there remain stuck, because they are merely learning to wear a more attractive mask without truly entering the path of individuation. They may flirt better, they may appear cooler, but deep down, they are still afraid of being abandoned. They still rely on women's admiration to define who they are. A man who has gone through individuation no longer needs to act alpha, because he simply is. Whether anyone likes him or not, whether someone stays or leaves, none of that alters his core being. And from that place, true soft power is born. No need to manipulate, no need to control, just presence. And that is something no pickup technique can replace. When you have gone through individuation, when you are no longer a man playing a role to be loved, but a true whole being, love, if it comes, will exist on an entirely deeper level. At that point, the relationship is no longer a stage play, where both parties are trying to perform the right roles. It is no longer a covert transaction masked by sweet words. It is no longer a man acting alpha, nor a woman loving through projections of an idealized man. So what is it? It is two individuals who have walked through their own darkness, standing face to face, not needing each other to feel whole, but freely choosing to be together. There is no fear of abandonment. There are no power games. There are no subtle control tactics that are so often present unconsciously in most modern relationships. Carl Jung once said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. When a woman has not yet confronted her animus, she will love you as an image. When you have not faced your own shadow, you will love her as a remedy for your own fears. But when both have gone through individuation, the man no longer needs a woman's validation. The woman no longer seeks a hero to rescue her. They can choose one another from a completely different place, not out of fear of loneliness, not out of lack, not to fill some inner void, but simply because they choose to walk together in freedom. And paradoxically, it is only when you reach this point that you begin to attract the kind of woman who is truly right for you. Not the ones who are only drawn to your outer image, not the women still ruled by an immature animus, but those who have also walked their own path, who are whole in themselves and no longer acting. At that point, there are no more lines like, "You are my everything, I can't live without you." No more hidden control tactics, just two true beings seeing one another with awakened eyes. And this kind of love, as Jung once said, is the rarest and most dangerous kind because it is not anchored in dependency. It does not need to be held onto because if it ends one day, both will remain whole. Yet it is also the freest, deepest form of love, where both can truly meet each other with no masks. No more projection, no more games, only truth. And it is this truth that creates enduring attraction. There is a truth that most men will not want to accept. You were not deceived by women. You were not forced by society. You willingly stepped into that role. No one forced you to live as a nice guy. No one forced you to constantly prove yourself as the ideal man. No one forced you to chase after others' approval. You chose to do it out of fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of not being loved. Fear of facing the emptiness within. And because of that fear, you kept wearing those masks, year after year. And when women grew tired of you replaced, you disrespected you. You blamed them. But as Carl Jung once said, a man who refuses to face himself will forever be the victim of others' projections. The question is not, why doesn't she love me for who I am? It is, why did I allow myself to be put in that position? You can continue living as you always have. Chasing approval. Chasing pickup techniques. Chasing tricks to attract women. But understand this. If you do, you will forever be a puppet in someone else's dream. You are not living your own life. You are merely playing a role written by someone else. Or you can choose the harder path, daring to sit alone. Daring to face your own shadow. Daring to embrace loneliness in order to be reborn. That path has no roses, no hacks, no shortcuts. It holds only the raw truth of who you are. But if you go deep enough, far enough, one day you will no longer be the one who needs to be chosen. You will be the one choosing your own path. And the paradox is, when you no longer need women to feel like a man, when you no longer need society's approval, you will begin to radiate a very different kind of attraction. No longer attraction based on surface skills, but attraction rooted in essence. At that point, if a woman who has gone through her own journey, no longer living through projections, no longer seeking a hero to save her crosses, your path, she will look at you and recognize. Here is a man she does not need to control, does not need to keep, does not need to mold, only walk beside in freedom without illusion. But remember this, no one can walk that path for you. No woman can love you enough to heal you. No teacher, no guru can undergo individuation for you. You must walk it yourself. Face it yourself. Choose for yourself. Or you will forever be the one who is chosen, playing roles waiting to be replaced. Or you can be the one writing the story of your own life. And when you truly become that man, one who no longer performs, no longer begs, no longer controlled, you will no longer need to seek attraction. Because you yourself will be the attraction.